There's a piece in the Washington Compost over the weekend by George Will. And George Will says what Obama and the Tea Party have in common. And I resent these comparisons because we have nothing in common. But he contrived something, and I want to address it. He says, and I read in part, Obama and his Tea Party adversaries have something important in common: disdain for the practice of politics within the framers' institutional architecture. So in other words, we reject the Constitution. He and they should read Jonathan Rauch's Rescuing Compromise in the current issue of National Affairs Quarterly. Politicians, Rauch notes, like other people, compromise because they have to, not because they want to. So Madison created a constitutional regime that by its structure created competing power centers and deprived any of them of the power to impose its will on the others. Now, I know Madison had enormous impact on our constitutional structure, but if you read his notes, it's not Madison's Constitution. There were a lot of great men who participated in this. There's no question Madison was a driving force. But Will should know better than that. But let's continue. The Madisonian system, Rauch says, is both intricate and dynamic. Quote, absent a rare and usually unsustainable supermajority, there's simply not much that any single faction, interest, or branch of government can do. Effective action in this system is nothing but a series of forced compromises. Well, this is the point. The irony of what Will is saying here is that's exactly what happened. And he missed it. In 2010, they had a supermajority in the Senate, and I want to tell you, they had a supermajority in the Senate as a reaction to the 8 years of the Bush administration. So all these people on TV, on cable, other places, going on and on about, do you want to win elections? We need more people in the Senate. Right. That's why we want to run conservatives. It's Reagan who got the landslides, not McCain, not Romney, not either Bush. We lost the Senate in 2006. We lost the House in 2006. They picked up even more seats in 2010. Excuse me, in 2008, because people were turned off by what Bush had done, particularly to the economy. And yet these same people are now lecturing you and me. We need to elect more people, don't we? Of course we do. And what do they pick? They pick one race, Christine O'Donnell. I can pick 25 of their races. Pathetic. So Will goes on. Representative Tom Cole, who is awful, Republican who represents Southwest Oklahoma, has a Ph.D. in British history and studied at the University of London, a well-known right-wing institution. Actually, it's left-wing. Says some of his colleagues in the House of Representatives think they're in the House of Commons. That is, they have not accepted the fact that in a Madisonian system, legislative and executive powers are separated. By this separation, Rauch writes, Madison built constant adjustment into the system. His Constitution is a dynamic political mechanism under which no faction ever prevails with finality. This is because there is no finality. See, this is the problem. Will does not accept that we are unmoored in so many respects from the Constitution, like Obamacare, which is an illegitimate Supreme Court decision, an illegitimate act passed by Congress, for which there is no constitutional basis. And the damage is permanent. In fact, to the point now where you have so-called conservatives, including so-called conservative columnists, who will more strenuously defend the New Deal and every piece of it, or virtually every piece of it, than the liberals themselves, who want to move on and do more. And they'll defend the New Deal more strenuously than they'll ever defend the Constitution. What does Will think James Madison would think of Obamacare, of John Roberts' decision? Well, I know what he would think, because he tells us in so many words about his view of tyranny in the federal government. Forcing actors to bargain and collaborate slows precipitous change while constantly... See, Will has it so wrong. Tea Party activists were prepared to settle on a one-year delay. That's compromise. Tea Party activists were prepared to settle on applying Obamacare without subsidies to members of Congress and to the president and the cabinet secretaries. You see, intrinsic in what Will is saying by comparing Tea Party individuals, many of you, to Obama, is his complete lack of understanding and connection with you. And I don't say the man is, I'm sure, personally as nice as can be. I've never met him. This is not a personal thing. I'm addressing this from an analytical point. At least I am, from my perspective. The Tea Party, we're not purists. We're constitutionalists. But when you have a president and a Congress that seeks to impose its will, and will do it without Republican votes, without negotiation, without input, because they ran for the finish line with a 2-year temporary control, supermajority control of both houses of Congress, and the presidency is not easily negotiated with. And I would refer George Will to Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt, both of whom argued against the Constitution, both of whom argued for evading its different barriers and walls against tyranny, and both of whom governed that way. We've talked about it here and we've written about it here. So I guess what I would say to George Will, and it's not just Will and the others too, at what point does urgency set in for you folks? At what point do you say, you know what, we can't compromise with this, we have to defeat this? At what point do you actually embrace the principles of the founding and run on them and win office? At what point do you do that and stop compromising your liberty? There is a point of no return.